Fuck! Hey everybody, welcome back to another brand new episode of Balisong Review. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Ceroni knives Integralis 2. I'm sorry for butchering the name. I don't know how it's pronounced. Even though my family is part Italian, I don't know how this is pronounced. So sorry if I butcher anything. I want to talk about how I managed to get this knife, and that's where I'm going to lead to a thank you to Pyro Flipper, who is letting me try 3 Ceroni knives, Ceroni products in these upcoming reviews. So the next 2 reviews should be Ceroni products. I kind of wanted to, my original thought was to do something like a Ceroni product each week and have something sparse in between. But considering that one of the things I was going to sparse in between was supposed to go to me earlier this week, and I still haven't heard from them yet, it's not going to look like that. Today we're talking about the Ceroni Integralis 2. This is a trainer version of the Integralis 2, which is a DE style live blade. Ceroni products for a long time have been kind of a thing that I've been wanting to try, because I've always wanted to try these like really cool Italian custom knives like Fior, Ceroni, all that sorts of stuff. And I've just been wanting to get my hands on one of these just to see if they're really worth the heavy price tag. Some of these products can range anywhere from $500 to like $3,000, and it's just crazy to see that kind of money going into this, a Balisong, and it's just crazy. Today we're starting out with the cheapest of the 3, and that is the Integralis 2. This I've seen float around for $500. I think when these were starting to like drop on Shop Sew It, these were like $500 something. This is a trainer blade with a DE style blade, which I'm going to take a look at from 2 different perspectives. There's the advising beginners perspective, and then there's the me now perspective, knowing all the stuff I do now. From a advising beginners perspective, for one, I wouldn't necessarily recommend someone just go out and buy something for $500. Like, you don't need a $500 knife to start out your Balisong journey and begin flipping. I mean, it's nice. It certainly is nice to have that, but you really don't need that. And one aspect of the trainer blade that I think wouldn't necessarily be for beginners is the fact that it is a DE style blade, because the DE style blade, while it's cool, it doesn't really teach beginners handle safety or handle distinction very well. And what I mean by that is being able to tell which handle you start your certain tricks from. Like certain tricks, like the basic opening, for example, you want to start from the safe handle. And on this, without a little thing on the handle, you can't really tell which is the safe handle, because to a beginner, both sides of the blade looks like the safe side. And that's kind of true with this DE perspective of the blade. So I guess no edge, no consequences. I guess that's the main rule with this thing, which is kind of funny. The design of the blade alone is something I wouldn't necessarily recommend to a beginner if you're looking to start learning, because again, one of the few basic things you do learn first off is handle distinction and where to start on certain tricks. And knowing that is definitely a good founding rule to learn when you're trying to learn Balisong flipping. And this is not the best thing to do that with. But from my perspective nowadays, handle distinction and handle like memory is just kind of muscle memory, and you just kind of know which handle you're on, even with a DE style blade like this. I mean, I've never had a live blade DE style blade, so I'm not too sure how I would be in that kind of situation, but just from this, I know from doing certain tricks that I would be on that handle just from practicing those tricks before. So I really don't see it as a huge issue from that perspective. But again, from a beginner perspective, it's not necessarily the most recommended thing. But overall, I do like how this thing looks. It does look kind of cool. And it's kind of magic in the fact that all this weight is taken out of the blade, yet it still has a good balance. More on that in a second. Hey, I forgot to put my thoughts on the balance in here, so I'm just going to tell you guys right here. The balance of the Integralis 2 is very weird, and this is mainly due to how heavy it is. For a trainer, this knife is very heavy, and it kind of distorts my brain on where specifically the balance is kind of leaning. And because of that, I'm just going to say that it's like a really, really heavy neutral balance, because I really can't pinpoint which specific side, the blade or the handle, is more heavy. So I'm just going to call it neutral and say that it's a really heavy version of neutral. So keep that in mind through this video. But for now, I do want to tell you guys that this is made out of RWL34 steel, which I have never heard of. I have been in this hobby for almost 4 years and have not heard of this blade steel, and I'm just now hearing about it. So there must be something special going on with this steel. It's Italian, so it must be like local to Italian, but I'm not going to assume anything because for some reason I didn't do proper research before this. But yeah, feel free to flame me in the comment section about my lack of knowledge of this steel. Anyways, the pivot system is on bushings and washers. The bushings and washer system is kind of scuffed right now because... Okay. I was trying to give an example that it has tap, but it didn't have tap for a second. One thing that I was kind of surprised about is that at this price point, it has tap and play. I imagine out of the box when this was new and from the factory, it didn't have it, but for some reason over like the constant like, you know, flipping and beating and whatnot, this has been like, you know, slowly degraded in tolerances. I would see, you know, stuff like that happening at meetups and stuff. So yeah, this is slowly degraded over tolerances, and I don't really think that's kind of acceptable at a $500 price point. Anything that's like has bushings should, you know, anything that has bushings that isn't like a 3D printed trainer or a piece of plastic should have quality tolerances. I mean, I know this is kind of a gripe to say, especially if you're like, if you have a bushing knife that's like worth $50 or is like made out of stainless steel. I feel like if you are charging $500 and in some cases $900, because this platform has a $900 one-off on Shop Sew It, the tolerances should last. And I feel like that's kind of a gripe I have with this one and something that I should note. Another thing I should note has something to do with the handles, but we'll get to that in a second. Speaking of handles, this is pinsless. I'm going to be honest with you guys here. I like pinsless knives. My Monarch V1 was the first pinsless knife I've ever had, and even though that kind of pivot system was more or less just a gimmick, same with the V2, it still was good, and I feel like, you know, in the time that the handles didn't slap, I had a lot of fun with it. Now, obviously, the better way to do pinsless system is like this, where you have a notch here that will continuously separate the handles. I still think pinsless is kind of cool, and even on this knife, it's still kind of a gimmick. It's still kind of, you know, it's kind of a novelty to have. There aren't many like, you know, mainstream pinsless knives out there, so, you know, it's a cool thing to see, pinsless knife, and this seems to be like a pretty robust kind of construction. If this place didn't already look like a used crack shed, this is even worse. It's a whole license plate. Why is it here? And why is it so close to this random hole? It's like the size of a... Like what in the right mind makes a hole that big? What is that? Drop it down in the comments. So for now, I'm going to give the pin system the Banzo seal of approval. So moving on to the handles, these are grade 5 titanium, and they are in a weird little construction. These are kind of, I would say Chanwich, but it's not like they don't separate, so it still is kind of channel design. I'm just going to say channel design, but with hella speed channel on it, because this is probably the biggest speed channel I've ever seen in a channel constructed knife, because holy crap, this is basically just sandwich constructed at this point. Like, look at that. It is just like, it is just a giant hole. You can see right through it. Like, why? I don't get this little like speed channel thing. Like, I mean, I get speed channel because if you have a channel constructed knife and you want a little less weight in the handles, you speed channel it. But this is just ridiculous. I don't really like that. It's kind of a gimmick. Also, it's a little coarse. Like when you rub your finger on the speed channel, like the edge of it, it's kind of coarse and it feels like it should have been sanded down a little bit. And it's the same on all three knives that we're going to be taking a look at, which is honestly really disappointing because I feel like if you're paying a big premium like that, this shouldn't be a concern whether it's going to be comfortable or not. Can you see it? $500 knife. Can you see it anywhere? What if I zoom in for you? Can you see it then? Can you see it now? $500 knife. Some of you guys are probably pointing to this thing right there when I say that, but truth of the matter is, I haven't been able to find a $500 knife anywhere in this area. I don't know what this shit is. feel like comfortability should just be built in. You shouldn't have to, hey, I paid this much money for this and it's not comfortable. Can you please fix it? Like, this is not something I would want if I'm paying a big premium like this. And that's kind of disappointing considering that there are a lot of other knives out there that are around the same price point that have that unlock, specifically the American-made Balisongs like the Medusa, the Sentinel, the Ceroni, all those things like that have the comfortability unlock. This does not have that, and this is like around the same price point, and in some cases even more. Yeah, not too big of a fan of that. Overall, I think the handles feel a little bit lackluster, and this might just be because it feels really square in a lot of places. Like, this little gimmick right here, the little rounding of the thing is still, it's not rounded. It feels very square. It feels very Squid Trainer 2.5-esque, where it was just a flat square with no chamfering. This, I feel like, should have been chamfered. It's just flat. There's, like, to beginners' hands, this is not comfortable. And on my offhand that I don't flip on, it does feel pretty coarse. One thing I do like about the handles, though, is the front finish. It's this nice little dark finish on the front that has like super grippy feel. It looks like an acid wash or a blackening on the handles. I'm not too sure what this is. I'm not an expert, but it's very nice and grippy, especially if you're doing tricks that require the face of the handle quite a bit. So I do like that. I also like the jimping on the side, both on the outside and inside. It's definitely a very nice addition, and ladders are pretty grippy on that, which is a good thing to have, especially if you're doing ladder-oriented tricks. I haven't really struggled with ladders with this knife, and honestly, partially due to the coarseness of this, it does keep grip kind of nicely. So yeah, overall, I would say quality-wise, it's not really as worth the price. However, for the materials you're getting, I guess you could kind of justify it, but quality and comfortability is not really there. It does definitely feel like slightly lower quality in price. So next up, let's talk about performance, and I think this is where this trainer shines a little bit, because to me, when flipping this knife, it's like witchcraft, because I don't know what's going on here. You can see giant hole in the trainer blade and just basically nothing in those handles except the face stuff. But the balance is the more magical part, because I thought with this like much material taken out and like this much material taken out, this would be super light. But this is actually heavier, and I have no idea how that is. This is like, I wouldn't say like 4.1, 4.2 range of weight, and the other ones are like 4.09. So this is heavier, and I have no idea, because there's so much material taken out of this handle, and like there's like nothing in this trainer blade. This is just cool, and I kind of like that. That alone, it's kind of witchcrafty, and it seems like it really shouldn't have this much weight, but it does for some reason, and I can't help but kind of like, be a little joyous at that. It's kind of cool. I also kind of like how it's just a giant hole down the center there. Like, you can just see through the. Sorry, there's like a UFO outside. There's basically nothing in there. You can kind of it's just kind of a hole. So I kind of like that. There's also a few details I like about like this knife, like the number 8 on the inside of the handles. I don't know if you guys can see that, but there's a little initial right there. But I also like the little Ceroni Knives logo on the handle. That's kind of a nice touch, and I do like that. It doesn't really offer any grip and feels like there's nothing there, so it's not really for anything but the logo itself. Overall, my opinion overall on this knife is that I don't really think it's worth $500. I would say it's definitely worth like maybe maybe high $300, because there is still a bit of a premiumness to come out of there. Like, you can get a cool little inlay in this little inlay spot right here. Like the Trinidad Scorpion that we're taking a look at has a carbon fiber inlay in it, and it is kind of cool. But besides that, I feel like the whole thing of this thing is a little bit of a little gimmicky, a little too gimmicky. And I remember around the time when these were coming out, the whole main thing was just to let every flipper possible to try this knife, so that it's as good as it sounds. So like, it just seems a little bit gimmicky in my opinion. Overall, if I had to give this knife a score out of 10, I would say I'd give it a 6 out of 10, because the other Ceroni knives are honestly more desirable to flip in my opinion. And the quality on this knife doesn't feel $500 worthy. That's just my opinion, though. If you guys have other opinions about this knife, put them down in the comment section. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure you slap that like button, and stay tuned for other Ceroni videos and other videos to come in the future. So thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys next time. Peace out.